Where were you born and where do you live now?
I was born in a small community in southern Mexico, in the state of Veracruz. And the city that I grew up is called Coatzacoalcos. That's where I grew up, but I was born in Tapachula, Chiapas, which is a city located right next to the border of Mexico and Guatemala. I live in Lincoln, in the state of Nebraska.
When and why did you immigrate to the United States? Did you visit USA before immigrating here?
I came to the United States back in 1991. I was 18 years of age. I had never been in the United States. Nebraska was not the location where I was going to live. I was on my way to Ohio, but I ran out of money in Lincoln. I had $150 in my pocket, and then this is where it brought me to. So I had to stay in Lincoln to earn more money so that I could go to Ohio, where I had a friend who had a house for me and a job to offer me. $150 was the money that my parents had saved for a long time. A group from the Seventh-day Adventist organization went down to build a church in northern Mexico, where my family and I were living at that time. I was going to college during that time. It just happened that I was able to meet this group, become acquainted with this group, and help this group build a church. At that point in time, looking at the political turmoil and violence and everything that happens in Mexico, I decided, along with my family, that it would be better for me to move away. So my parents asked that group if they could give me a ride to wherever they were coming into the United States. I only had $150 in my pocket. I went to the Greyhound bus station in Lincoln, P and 10th Street at some point in time, and then I gave $150. I put it on the counter. The lady at the counter said, I don't think it's gonna cut it. Of course, I didn't understand. I didn't speak a word of English. All I could say is, so I took my money. It was March, it was cold, it was snowing, and I only had a t-shirt with me. So a lady came to me out of nowhere, perhaps a bystander, who was actively looking at me and the whole case scenario, and she had a Husker down feather coat, thick. As I was leaving the station, the bus station, without knowing where to go, she came to me, she took her coat off, she put that coat on me, and I think this is what she said: I think you will need this more than I do. That random act of kindness told me at that point in time that I would be all right in this community. My mom and dad, they are both 85 years of age. They live in Lincoln as well, not too far from where we live.
How many siblings do you have?
Only my sister and I. She lives in Lincoln, yes.
Did you know English when you came?
I did not speak, well, I shouldn't say that I did not speak a word of English. I knew the words bathroom, thank you, I am hungry. At a very early age, I would hear my mother tune into a radio station in the United States. She had a shortwave radio that she cherished very much. So in the evening, she would sit right next to the table, and then she would just start capturing frequencies from all over the world. But there was one station in particular, I believe it was, if I recall correctly, somewhere in Texas. And I remember my sister and I talking to each other, speaking in English. Even though we did not know anything about English, we would just make up words. In Spanish, we have 5 vowel sounds: A, E, I, O, U. But in English, we have 20 vowel sounds. So everything will be totally different and so complex. The hardest word for me was to say thank you because of the TH. So instead of thank you, I would say thank you. Worth it. It would be worth it. Pronouncing any word that had T and H in it would be practically impossible.
How long was it before you felt comfortable conversing and sharing in English?
In Lincoln, new community, not knowing anyone, to be honest, I was able to be adopted by a family of Seventh-day Adventists. The same group that brought me here realized that I was not going anywhere. Through those families who, within their ethical standards of life, they said, Oscar needs to survive, and we are going to help him survive. I am here today. Because of them, I was able to find a job. Because of them, I was able to go to school and learn English through the ESL program at the University of Nebraska. But that took years. And I think the most important piece is that they met me halfway, but I had enough emotional energy to meet them halfway as well. They were not going to do that work for me if I was not willing to walk right next to them and say, let's do this together. And I think I may be able to do this.
What do you do now?
I work in the capacity of cultural specialist, bilingual liaison coordinator for Lincoln Public Schools.
What impressed you the most when you landed in the United States?
The snow. Seeing snow for the first time in my entire life. I stood out for hours. Yes, no, I lost track of pretty much everything. I wanted to touch snow. I wanted to see snow. Technology was another thing that I was surprised. I remember walking into a Target store, and all of a sudden the automatic doors would open and close as people would enter the building. The first time I was afraid that I would not be able to get out, so I stood right next to the door, and I would see it open, and then I would see people just go in and open, and the doors would close, and I found that fascinating.
What was the hardest thing to adjust to?
Perhaps this is the hardest question. The hardest thing that I have had to deal with on a daily basis for the past 30 plus years has been to teach myself that my fishing techniques are no better than your fishing techniques. And let me explain. I have brought 3 cups. I believe that everyone who is born into this physical universe, it's been given 3 toolboxes. This toolbox right here is the most important of them all. This is the box where you are going to find all knowledge possible. These other 2 boxes right here, those are empty. This box in the middle, it's the organizational skills box, and this last box is a box where you are going to wrap things neatly and present it to your generations to come in a way that they will remember. So let me explain. I was born next to the Gulf of Mexico. The main source of income and the main source of survival is fishing. My grandpa, great-grandpa, my father, they understood techniques that were left in this particular box. There were handwritten notes by my great-grandpa and grandparents about tidal waves, how to weave a net. They taught me how to build a fishing rod. Is my fishing better than your fishing? That has been the hardest thing that I have had to deal with as an immigrant in this country. Now imagine if we talk about religion. We could spend hours and hours. And I would ask you the same question according to this thought. Is my religion better than your religion? But I am not gonna go there. All I'm trying to say is that today I understand that my fishing is not better than your fishing.
What is your highest achievement in the United States?
My highest achievement is, of course, there are many, but perhaps the understanding that your survival is just as important as my survival, and for me is the greatest achievement that I would not have gained with the limited knowledge that I had about life in my hometown. Along the way, I have been able to get my bachelor's degree in education from the University of Nebraska. After that, I was able to get my master's degree in counseling psychology from Doane University. I have been the founding member for Boys and Girls Clubs of America in Lincoln. I have been the founding member for a People's Health Center, today is called Blue STEM. I was the founding member for CLIA, Center for Legal Immigration Assistance. I have been board president for the Hispanic Community Center for the University of Nebraska Extension 4-H chapter. Do you think all of those accomplishments will erase the color of my skin? No. I will always be an immigrant, Mexican, brown man walking the streets of Lincoln, Nebraska. Why then all of those accomplishments? Is it to impress someone so that I can be accepted as I am? I am doing this because the greatest accomplishment of them all, the fact that your survival is just as important as my survival. If a student will benefit from that after-school program through Boys and Girls Club at Park Middle School, that could be my son. If that mother will be saved at People's Health Center or Blue STEM because of a serious illness, that could have been my mother. That's something that came and became a reality once I was able to understand that my fishing techniques are no better than your fishing techniques.
What would you have done differently, and what would be your advice to a person that is planning to immigrate to the United States?
Oh, wow. This is a story. There was a man who walked on top of a mountain, and from up there, this man looked down into a city. And he said, down there is an ugly city, and in that city there are ugly people who speak weird language. That city is filthy and that city is smelly. I have to go through it because my car is broken and I must find help. Next morning, he was overcharged. When he picked up his car, he left, he was swearing, he was upset, and he said, I knew that this was an awful city. Another man walked on top of that mountain, looked at the city below, and he said, that is a city where I want to live. That is a beautiful city. The people there are good people, and I will find help. He walked into a restaurant and he was so happy to taste a wonderful food, and he said, this tastes just like home. The owners, when they heard that, they said, we know that you are not from around here. Do you need a place to stay? Do you need work? All I'm trying to say is that when I was 18, I wish I had that vision that this would be a good place for me. Instead of all those fears that I learned at a very early age. That people were weird, that they spoke weird, that this perhaps was not a good place for me. I wish my mentality was different, and that your journey would have been a lot smoother for me.
Do you feel you have been embraced and welcomed by the community?
This is going to sound weird. No one has to welcome me. Many people have welcomed me, and I have received that as a slap on the face. But that's because my own ignorance. A welcoming is, Oscar, you look different. Could you tell us where you come from? That's welcoming. A welcoming is, look, there is a party Saturday night, and we would like you to be there. But I was not ready for that. So I decided not to go to the party. Or I would say, sure, but I would think in my head, I do not fit in there, so I am not going. So many people welcomed me, but I was not ready to be welcomed.
When you refer to yourself, do you see yourself as an American, Mexican American, or Mexican?
You know, I did not mention this before. I am a third generation Japanese, third generation French, first generation Zapotec from a southern tribe. Now a U.S. citizen through the process of naturalization. So I'm a human person of the world, but I do respect the cultural perspectives in which I was brought up.
Do you think immigrating to the United States was the right decision, and why?
I'm able to be here today because of that decision, but more than anything else, the journey has shaken and challenged my entire being, the way that I see the world. If I were to remain in Mexico, my scope of knowledge would be so limited that it would be a boring life, perhaps. Yeah?